Let's have some fun restoring my guest room nightstands. Now, these are the perfect shape for exactly what I wanted in this room, but they're a total disaster. And I bought them several months ago. They've been in my guest room looking just like this. And I'm like, okay, it's time to refinish these. They are very old. They're handmade. That finish is coming right off. And the reason I know they're handmade is because all the routering is different on each edge. They're actually different heights. All the turn legs are a little bit different. Some are short and fat and some are long and skinny. So they're kind of a mess. They're made completely out of plywood, and it's time to freshen these up. Let's see what we can do with them. I'm Shireen with Olive Street Designs, and I'm showing the process of furniture refinishing so you can learn too. Be sure to subscribe and follow for more. I decided I wanted to go ahead and just try to strip the top on these because the varnish on them, one, you can tell it's coming off because I could just scrape it, but it's also not super thick. And so I thought, well, I'll just throw some stripper on there, take that right off. I don't usually use stripper. You'll notice if you watch many of my videos that I'm more of a sander than a stripper. You can only say that on this channel. Anywhere else you'd be like, what? I do prefer to sand. I find strippers to be messy and there's a lot of drying time in between. When I can get in there with a carbide scraper and a sander, I can go to town and I can be done with that so much faster. And I feel like with less mess. Once you learn how to use a carbide scraper and not damage your piece, it really is a huge time saver. So I put the stripper on there. I let it sit for about 20 minutes. And that was a Jasco's stripper. So it's the good old chemical stripper. There's nothing eco-friendly about it. And it did just completely cut through that. Now it's not very thick. I didn't put a lot on there because the varnish is not very thick. So it did okay taking that off. And then I thought, well, since I did the stripper, I might as well use some acetone and just get the rest of it off of there. Acetone, and I've got a nylon brush. Had I had a wider brush, I would have used that, but it was helping to melt more of the finish away. But you've got to work quick because acetone, it just evaporates so quickly that if you don't wipe it back, then it pretty much sets back up again, and then you have to strip it back off. But it does work really good at dissolving as long as you can move quickly and do smaller sections. So I started doing just like a quarter of the top. You can see how fast it completely evaporates. But it does melt it. So that did pretty good, but I was like, there's still stuff on there that I want to get off. So I got out my carbide scraper because this is my friend. And I am using very little pressure here, but it's just taking that last layer of gunk off the top. And I'm just trying to get down to bare wood. So I'm really not applying much pressure, but between the stripper and the acetone, it really loosened everything up. So this is actually going super easy. I'm not sure had I just started here, how much faster this would have gone, but we're going with it, doing the stripper. So I got those completely stripped and scraped, and now I need to get the hardware off so I can start working on everything else. This hardware is super charming. I'm not sure if I'm going to reuse it at this point. I do like it, but I'm not sure that it fits with the room that they're going to go in. So I've got 120 grit and just trying to get through the rest of it. So I want to take this down completely to bare wood. And it's doing pretty good. I did let this dry for a number of hours so that's not going to just completely gunk up my sandpaper. And when you sand with the drawers in, sometimes they dance. Thankfully, none of them actually fell out. I wasn't even paying attention that they were dancing all over. But this finish was left pretty rustic. I would say it's kind of primitive where it still had areas from where the saw blades had gone through it. You could see those. I pulled out the orbital now and seeing if that is any faster. And I can't say it was necessarily faster. It was just different. So I'm sticking with the orbital here. And then I decide to get the bright idea. Well, why don't I just use the carbide scraper first? We'll skip the stripper I did one drawer using the orbital, and then I just had to get out the carbide scraper. And this is where it all changed. Everything went so much faster. I should have just started there in the very beginning. And with these drawers, whoever made these kind of put varnish and stain all over the place. So I sanded all four sides. You can see they're all different shades, different grain patterns. None of them match. So I'm going to do the same process on the bodies of these. Everything else is going to get scraped and sanded. Now the carbide scraper, it gets kind of a bad rap with some people that are wood purists because they say you damage it, but you have to learn how to use it so that you're not accidentally gouging anything. And you do that by applying just firm pressure, not super hard, and making sure that it's flat. Because if you pull it to one side or the other, you will put a deep gouge in your wood, and then you'll cry about it. So just be careful. But once you practice with it, it's great. So this is going okay with the orbital, but on the sides, I don't know why, it just was not cutting through this finish. I went and got an 80 grit, and it wasn't doing it either. I have an area here that's completely broken. I don't know why they routed the back edge of this, even on the bottom. This is not how modern nightstands are done, just because this sits against the wall. And so when that has an edge or a flange that sticks out, you're not able to put this up flush against the wall. But this area was broken. It was broken when I got it. But again, I bought these because they were exactly what I wanted, and I set them in the room. And for months now, every time I open that door, I'm like, I have to refinish those. I really need to refinish those. I've had guests in that room, and I'm like, I'm sorry about the nightstands. Just go with it. They're vintage. Everyone said they're so cute. I can't wait to see what you do with them. So here it is. Today's the day. So I did inject some glue in there, and I've got my clamps on. I'm wiping off all the excess. And I'm going to let that sit. And that actually got a chance to sit overnight. So the next day I came back again with my carbide scraper. I am dealing with the routed edges, so I can't scrape everything because of course it's round. But I'm going to scrape off as much as I can down in the grooves, and there's a flat part on the front. So I can definitely get in there and scrape that. Yeah, a lot of times when you're stripping pieces, it's a lot of trial and error. Now, I'm sure I could have put acetone on this and scrubbed and scrubbed and scrubbed and wiped and done that too. So that's not saying that that's not an okay way to do it. Stripper works. This is just my preferred method. So I use the carbide scraper, and now I have a sanding net that's on my little contour blocks, those little rubber blocks, and they come in a whole bunch of sizes. So it's just going through the sizes that fit in each little groove and getting the rest of the finish out of it. So now I'm just going to start with the carbide scraper everywhere. This is the other nightstand. But on this one, instead of using the orbital, well, that didn't seem to work very well. I'm going to switch it up and go back to the surf prep. And that, I don't know, this is not normally the way that this works, that the surf prep works better than the orbital on a big flat area, but it was. So I'm just going with it. It's totally trial and error every time we go through this. So now and you see I have a sanding net on my surf prep. Sometimes they just tear through the finish a little bit better. And now they are done. This was hours of sanding, and they're not perfect, but I know that I'm not staining these light because of all the variances in the wood, being that it's plywood. And I liked the kind of the color that they were. They were dark. Most of the furniture in my house is all very light. My whole bedroom is white, and I like these dark for some reason. So I'm going to just roll with that, and I'm going to go dark. So I wasn't super diligent about getting every single little bit of stain out. There's some still in the edges. So we're going with dark walnut. That was wood conditioner, a pre-stain conditioner that I put on. All my products are water-based, so that was a water-based pre-stain conditioner. And what that does is help your stain go on evenly. Again, this is a dark stain. This salmon product, salmon stains, are super pigmented. and which is one of the things I love about them, especially when you're doing dark stains. And I've decided that I'm going to let this just be really dark. I'm not going to sit and wipe it back. So I'm just putting it on. I'm not putting a super thick coat on, but just nice and even. And I'm going to just let that be. Normally with stains, you know, we wipe it on, wipe off. And again with the drawers, and I'm doing the edges and the top lip. Got those all done. And now I need to do something with these little legs. So I got a box. This box is covered in spray paint because I've been using it, but now it's time for it to be a box again, and I'm going to use it to do the legs. I'm drilling some holes. And this is like Easter eggs. You got to have something to hold all your Easter eggs while they dry. Same thing here. It works perfectly. You can spin them around and put the stain on. And I do have gloves on because I end up with just completely stained fingers. So I remembered my gloves this time. But you can spin them around, put the stain on. It just works great. This is such a good trick. All right, these dried overnight. That was a lot of conditioner that I put on there and the stain, that amount of liquid. I just needed to let these dry overnight. Now I'm applying top coat. Again, this is my favorite water-based General Finishes top coat. And the finish that I prefer is flat. I just don't like the shiny, so this is a flat top coat. And I'm just applying it with a poly brush, and I decided to actually put top coat on the sides of my drawers because I had sanded everything back, and I just wanted to keep those looking nourished and all one color. Same thing with the legs, just applying the top coat now. I let that dry for several hours, and I'm back now to sand in between coats. Again, all water-based products does raise the grain. I didn't sand between the stain and the top coat, but when I came back in after the top coat, they just needed a little something to remove a little bit of gritty feeling. And this is probably a 400 to 500 grit sandpaper sponge. It's a sanding sponge. I've used it so much. It was a 400. It's probably closer to 600 now. It's getting kind of smooth. But it's just enough to smooth everything out. This is a damp microfiber towel, and then going in with my second coat of top coat. I ended up putting 3 coats of top coat on. Just because these are probably going to be in that room for years. And then we're going to put the legs on, but you'll notice that they are completely different sizes. They're different widths, different sizes. So I had to sit and play a little game of trying to get 4 of them that were close enough that they would work. So I put them on, and this set, or that one is super rocky. So I decided to swap some legs around, and it's pretty good. I think I've got it. Okay, let's line some drawers. I have 8 drawers. Again, with this being handmade, I thought these are all going to be different. And I measured 2 drawers just to see if I was working with completely different sizes on every drawer, but thankfully, they were all pretty close in size. So I went ahead and just marked everything. I'm going to just cut these all at once and line a bunch of drawers. I like to cut mine to size so that I don't have any waste after, and then it's much easier. They just go right in. So I got 8 of them cut. I dry fit it, make sure that was the right size, peel off the backing. In it goes. It's the right size, so I don't have anything else to trim. And then I just take my plastic putty knife, smooth all the air bubbles out, and this is rinse and repeat over and over and over and over. 8 times. And here they are. That went nice and smooth. Okay, time to put some hardware on. So if you know me, I usually put gold on everything. My house has no gold. Isn't that funny? So I had to find something that complemented this piece, but wasn't really silver, because everything in my house is brushed nickel. But I was like, I don't think silver is going to look good on these nightstands. So I found these knobs. They're heavy and thick, and I just loved all the ridges on it. And I thought, these will go. This was kind of a vintage look. And if my head weren't in the way, I'd show you the big reveal. My head's in the way. But let's take a look back at where these things started. I think this was the perfect hardware choice. Not too gold, not too silver, but still the vintage feel. You can really see the height variance in these now. But they're so charming and quirky that I just love them. I'm so happy to give these new life. I hope you like the way they turned out. You know, they're not super high-end and they're not designer, but they're perfect and I love them. I did have glass cut for the top just so they'd last forever. This is my little guest room where they now live. I hope you like them. Be sure to follow for more.